So we know about the transfer portal now. That's not overly new. Been around for now a few years.
Quarterback's been using it like it's going out of style for years.
Yeah, the quarterback's big time for sure. But even more, like they note 2,000 FBS players have entered the transfer portal in 2021 and 2022. So, I mean, you're talking about a total secondary recruiting tool for coaches across the country. Thousands of kids are going, okay, wow, I get one free, penalty-free chance to transfer schools. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, ask half the OU football team that follow Lincoln Riley out to USC.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So Shane Beamer, head coach of the Gamecocks, who actually took an Oklahoma quarterback, old Spencer Rattler, he got a couple of guys, man. He had a big transfer kind of class, and he says it's never ending. And it's just one of the million things you're balancing in regards to the portal. It says the portal, your own roster, high school recruiting, your staff, it's an endless ball of fun, he calls it. Now, I mean, the transfer portal has got to be some level of bittersweet action here for these coaches because on one hand, man, it's really nice that I can restock the pond much easier now on an off-season to off-season basis. With this transfer portal, I can go from being a pretty crappy team one year to next year. Okay, I get a couple of nice transfers in, a nice little recruiting class with some incoming freshmen, and boom, we can go from a 5-win team to a 10-win team much quicker. But then at the same time, that you got to keep these relationships nice and good because everybody's peeking over at your players, and your players are peeking everywhere else, going, okay, my playing time or whatever it may be. Bleep this, I'm just going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, it's real simple. And the reason they even came up with this portal was because back in the day, everybody's like, wait a minute, these guys are recruiting all these players and these coaches just bouncing around. In other words, they tell the mamas and the daddies, I'm going to take care of your son and we're going to be able to do these great things. Oh, wait a minute, $25 million contract, I'm going to the next school. And the kids are like, what the hell? So they came up with this portal. So the guys, like even a Joe Burrow, who was stuck behind some good quarterbacks at Ohio State, said, let me go to LSU.
Yeah, you've seen some real success stories out of this thing. And so it is fun. From a fan perspective, it's a little bit like the coach perspective where it can be bittersweet if you're a fan of a particular program and you're seeing guys leaving your program in the transfer portal constantly. It's a bummer. But at the same time, you're also seeing your program get inundated with more athletes as well because of the transfer portal. So it's a little bit bittersweet. I think as a fan, it is fun. It's certainly more fair, as you mentioned, where the coaches are always constantly, they're in one place, then they're in another, and another, another, and no one is, they're not being penalized for that at all, whereas the players always had to sit out a year before being able to play for a new program. And so that's no longer the case. It's nice, but one Power 5 personnel director calls the transfer portal a total bleep show. He says, imagine it's like the NFL and every person was potentially a free agent after every season. How do you build a culture at that point when you're rebuilding every offseason, he asks. And he says, we've had to start thinking more like NFL teams and adapt to how we do everything. So it's more complicated than just waiting for a player to enter the portal, reaching out and hoping for the best. There's like a ton of work that's put into the evaluation process, the recruitment, avoiding penalties for tampering with players, even though we'll get to a second where tampering is definitely a part of this whole deal. It's a little bit like the Wild Wild West.
I just thought of a solution. Have your big booster alumni guy sign said player to a 4-year contract.
Yeah.
Under the table.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That'll keep them tied down to a particular...
You'll lose X millions of dollars under the table.
Yeah.
You don't sign this contract.
So...
If you try to go in the portal.
There's 2 waves with the transfer portal throughout the calendar after the season ends and then after spring ball. So players submit their paperwork to the compliance department, have their names entered into the database, and then boom, it lists out each player seeking a transfer. Now, new names pop up in the database all the time. Coaches can sift through the potential transfers as they come in, but there's no notification process. You have to have a designated person who's constantly, basically imagine them refreshing the page to see what new names are popping up in here, and then checking news outlets and Twitter and all these different sources so that you're up to date on which names are in there. But the evaluation process comes much before that, where they talk about how, okay, when you're when you're playing a particular team during the season and you're scouting that team, you have somebody that is doing scouting reports on every single player that shows up on film, just in case that particular player decides to enter the transfer portal. You have something on him to say, okay, do we want this guy? We played against him last year. Do we want him? So there's an evaluation process, but long before guys even are in the transfer portal that teams are having to do now. So one personnel director says you got 200 plus teams. Every single player on that team could hit the portal at any second. It's not like the NFL where this guy could be a free agent or get cut or, it's just, you never know. It says we try and get ahead of things as much as we can with having a list. Like, hey, these are the running backs that if they ever hit the portal, we would be interested in. We do that for every position. So you're basically scouting every single player that you possibly can on everybody's team. And 9 times out of 10, these guys aren't even going to go in the transfer portal and it's a moot point. But for the ones that do, you say, oh, we looked at this guy. We know we want him. He's in there. Let's make a move.
Here's what's so wild. Unlike the NFL, which has 32 teams, imagine how many major college programs there are. I mean, it's insane. Yeah. Just look at the Power 5 alone. Power 5 conferences. We're talking, yeah. Man, trying to keep up with all these players that can jump into the portal.
Yep. And then there's the idea of the tampering part of the process.
Oh, it. Somebody's luring a guy into the portal?
Yes. And so because here's something I did not know. An unseen problem that people don't realize is that once a kid hits the portal, the school that he's currently at can cancel his scholarship immediately starting the end of that particular semester. So there's a little bit, it's risky for as soon as you're a player and you put your name in that portal, say you're a player for the Sooners and in October you say, bleep this, I'm going into the portal or whatever month it is. Okay, well then at the end of that semester that you're in the middle of right now, the Sooners can pull your scholarship. So you have to know on the front end that there's teams that want you. There's schools that want you.
Yeah, you got to know ahead of time that Lincoln Riley wants you at USC with another scholarship.
So there's inevitable tampering. One personnel director said the problem is you put kids in a situation where they know that risk. So any smart kid is not just going to put his name in the portal until he knows he's going to have somewhere to go. So you created a situation where schools aren't allowed to talk to kids before they're in the portal, but no kid wants to go in the portal until he knows he has a school to go to. So it's like
exactly
they've set up the rules in a way where it's like, okay, you're not supposed to talk to another school, but you don't know that anybody's actually going to want you if you go in there, and then your current school is going to pull the scholarship, and then you're bleeped. And so that's something that, like, one personnel director estimated that 80% of players have already made a decision in terms of what school they're going to transfer to before officially entering the portal.
You cannot tell me that Joe Burrow did not know that LSU wanted him when he entered the portal.
Right.
You cannot say that he didn't. He's that good of a quarterback.
So I mean, it's just another layer for these coaches and these programs to have to maneuver through. Right. It's just it continues to be 365 days a year. You're recruiting outside, but then you're also having to keep these good relationships inside because you know at any moment these guys that are in your locker room right now can just boom in the snap of a finger, be gone. And so like the idea of being a college coach does not sound, I know everybody's personality is different. And clearly Nick Saban loves this kind of thing. But like from my perspective, I'm like, man, if you're one of these great coaches that has options, why would you want to be in college football if you could be in the NFL?
And you're talking about college kids, 17 to 22-year-olds who really, they're all full of testosterone. They think they know it all. You can't tell them S. Right. They think they know it all. You might, and plus you just don't know what to believe. You don't know if they got a girlfriend, have a broken heart, and can't. I mean, you have no idea what's making them motivate. You don't know if it's money. You have no idea if it's actually an education. You have no idea if they want to be Instagram stars or influencers. You have no idea. I'm only bringing this up because, a lot of them like TikTok.
Dang right they do.
I'm just saying.
It's popular. I mean, everybody likes TikTok. It's funny. Like, I don't have the app. I see the videos on all different social media platforms all the time, but it's funny. Like, I know CA, you get in on the TikTok, don't you?
No.
You don't have the app on your phone and you don't watch the videos?
But you don't. I don't, because I would go down the rabbit hole.
Right, exactly. You go down the rabbit hole.
I already know I'm terrible on YouTube.
Yeah.
I go on YouTube and I never come out of there until 3 hours later.
Yeah.
Now, on TikTok, my wife, she's totally addicted. Her first vice was Angry Birds, and then it switched to TikTok. And she's on that thing 24/7, and she's always texting me TikTok things. And then I go down the rabbit hole on. I don't go down on my own because I know what's going to happen.
Yeah, then you'll wake up 2 hours later and you're like, wait, what just happened?